In the quiet suburb of Millbrook, 1991 was just like any other year. The streets were lined with modest houses, families tucked away in their routines, and neighbors who waved politely but kept to themselves. One such family was the Parkers, a close-knit, ordinary family of four who had a tradition that stood out in their otherwise simple lives: pizza night. Every Friday evening, without fail, the Parkers ordered from Tony's Pizzeria, a small local joint just a few blocks down the road. It was their time to unwind, a ritual that brought them together after a long week. On that particular Friday, October 11th, the air was crisp with the onset of autumn, and the smell of fallen leaves mixed with the distant scent of baking dough. Inside the Parker home, the kitchen buzzed with anticipation. Susan Parker, the mother, was setting the table, 4 plates, forks, and glasses neatly arranged. Her husband, Mark, was in the living room helping their 2 children, Emily, age 9, and Jake, age 7, finish their homework before the feast. Laughter and chatter filled the air as the clock ticked closer to the expected arrival of the delivery driver. At exactly 6:45 p.m., the phone rang. Susan answered with a smile, confirming the order one last time. The plan was simple: a large pepperoni and mushroom pizza, 2 sodas, and some extra cheese. After the call, the family gathered in the living room, their faces glowing with the warm anticipation of a familiar comfort. But the delivery driver never arrived. Minutes turned into hours. The usually punctual delivery man was nowhere to be seen. At 8 p.m., Susan called Tony's Pizzeria to check on the order. A young man answered hesitantly, saying the driver had left but hadn't returned. Something was wrong. Panic quietly settled in as Mark tried calling the driver's cell phone. No answer. Concern grew heavy in the small house. The Parkers looked out the window, hoping to see the familiar delivery car turn the corner. But the street remained empty, silent. That night, no neighbors reported hearing anything unusual. No disturbances, no screams, just the eerie absence of the Parker family. By morning, the house was still. The TV was on, playing a paused show. 4 plates sat on the dining table, untouched. The phone lay off the hook, its last dial tone eerily silent. The Parkers had vanished without a trace. The morning after the Parkers vanished, the neighborhood awoke to a disturbing silence. Susan's boss called the house, worried when no one answered. Friends and relatives began to call, but all attempts to reach the family went unanswered. Slowly, alarm bells started ringing. By noon, a concerned neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins from across the street, noticed the mail piling up by the front door and the curtains still drawn. She decided to check on the family. When no one responded, she called the police. Officers arrived and entered the home. The scene was unsettling. The TV was still on, frozen on the last program the children had been watching. The table was set for dinner, plates waiting, forks untouched. The phone receiver rested on the floor, disconnected. Yet, there was no sign of struggle. No broken windows, no forced entry. It was as if the entire family had simply walked out, except they hadn't. Nothing was missing. All their belongings remained intact. No car keys, no wallets, nothing. The initial theory was a sudden disappearance, maybe a trip gone wrong, but no one could explain why the entire family would vanish without telling anyone, leaving behind everything. Detective Miller, assigned to the case, was puzzled. He began by interviewing neighbors. They remembered seeing the delivery driver from Tony's Pizzeria that evening, the last known person to have contact with the Parkers. His name was Carl Simmons, a young man with a checkered past. A delivery driver by day, he had been rumored to have trouble off the clock, whispers of debts, late-night fights, and a volatile temper. But nothing concrete, nothing linking him to the disappearance. When police tried to reach Carl, he was nowhere to be found. His home was empty, his car was missing. A search for him began. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread in the town. Some said Carl had been involved in something darker. Others whispered about Tony's Pizzeria, about strange smells coming from the kitchen late at night, about a fire that had destroyed the place months earlier. But no one spoke openly, as if fear hung over the mystery. As days turned to weeks, the The trail grew cold. No leads, no clues, just the silence of an empty house and a family gone without a trace. What happened to the Parkers? Was Carl really involved, or was there something more sinister beneath the surface? Months passed after the Parkers' disappearance, but Detective Miller's investigation remained stuck in a fog of dead ends and unanswered questions. Then, in early 1992, a shocking development shook the town. Carl Simmons, the missing delivery driver, was arrested for arson. Tony's Pizzeria, the very place where the Parkers ordered their last meal, had burned down in a suspicious fire late one night. Witnesses reported seeing a figure fleeing the scene, and surveillance footage from a nearby store had captured a man matching Carl's description. When police finally caught Carl, he was living in a run-down motel several towns away, his clothes stained with soot. During interrogation, he appeared nervous, evasive, but refused to answer questions about the Parker family. Detective Miller pressed harder. Why had Carl torched his own workplace? Was it to cover something up? Was the fire connected to the family's disappearance? Carl's story was fragmented. He admitted to financial troubles, debts piling up, and pressure from loan sharks. But when asked about the Parkers, he grew defensive, denying any involvement. The arson trial became a media sensation. The townspeople speculated wildly. Some believed Carl was guilty of something far worse than arson, that he had a hand in the disappearance. Others thought he was just a troubled young man who snapped. Yet no concrete evidence linked Carl to the Parkers beyond the last delivery he had attempted to make that fateful night. Inside the courtroom, Carl's silence about the missing family fueled suspicion. Detectives scoured every detail of his life, his relationships, and his past. They dug into Tony's Pizzeria's finances, uncovering strange transactions and odd deliveries in the months leading up to the fire. One detail stood out: a burned, barely legible receipt for a large pizza order addressed to the Parker residence on the night they vanished. But the biggest mystery remained: where was the family? As the trial went on, Detective Miller found himself haunted by unanswered questions. Could Carl's arson have destroyed evidence? Had someone else been involved? Or had the Parkers stumbled onto something dangerous, something worth hiding? The answers were buried deep, waiting to be uncovered, and little did anyone know the key to the mystery was about to resurface in the most unexpected way. Decades slipped by. The Parker family case grew cold, becoming little more than a tragic memory in Millbrook's history. The town moved on, and the mystery of their disappearance was filed away, gathering dust alongside countless other unsolved cases. Then, in the spring of 2024, a group of plumbers working on a major storm drain renovation in downtown Millbrook stumbled upon something utterly bizarre. As they fed a large sewer auger through the aged storm main beneath the city streets, the machine suddenly caught on something heavy and immovable. With a loud creak and grind, the plumbers struggled, tugging and pulling until they dragged a large, rusted object free from the muck. To their disbelief, it was a commercial pizza oven, one just like those used in pizzerias. The oven was corroded and covered in years of grime, but its shape was unmistakable. The plumbers noticed something strange inside the oven through the cracked glass door. 4 dinner plates, coated with dried sauce and dust, sat in place, and amidst the debris, a melted cordless phone lay wedged in a corner. The phone was cracked and scorched, but miraculously the battery still had a faint charge. When technicians powered it up, the last number dialed appeared on the small screen. Caller ID, a local number registered to none other than Tony's Pizzeria's delivery service. Shockwaves rippled through the community as news spread. Could this oven be the very same one from the Parkers' last pizza night? The police reopened the case immediately. Forensic experts were called in to examine the oven, the plates, and the phone. They hoped to find clues that had eluded investigators for over 3 decades. The melted phone, in particular, was promising. It was a physical link to the vanished family and perhaps to the delivery driver, Carl Simmons, who had vanished into infamy years before. Detective Miller, now retired, was brought back as a consultant. He returned to the scene, staring at the rusty oven pulled from the depths, contemplating the twists fate had dealt him and the Parker family. How did that oven end up lodged in a storm drain beneath the city? What had happened to the Parkers after they ordered their final pizza? And most haunting of all, what secrets had been buried alongside that oven for 33 years? As investigators pieced together this astonishing find, they uncovered a dark thread connecting the oven, the phone, and a forgotten truth about the delivery driver's past that would shock the town all over again. With the pizza oven pulled from the storm drain, the investigation gained new life. Forensic teams carefully documented every detail: the melted cordless phone, the 4 dusty plates, and even faint traces of what seemed like food remnants still stuck inside the oven. The phone became the centerpiece of the inquiry. Despite years of damage, technicians managed to recover fragments of its memory. The last number dialed was the delivery driver's home phone, a number registered to Carl Simmons. Detective Miller, now consulting on the case, remembered the young man's troubled past and the fiery destruction of Tony's Pizzeria. But this new evidence suggested something even more sinister had been hidden all along. The forensic analysis revealed traces of accelerants inside the oven and around the storm drain, chemical residues consistent with the arson that had destroyed Tony's Pizzeria years before. It seemed the oven wasn't just discarded, it was deliberately hidden. When police traced the phone records, they uncovered a chilling pattern. The delivery driver had been making secret late-night calls to a mysterious number unconnected to anyone in town. Further digging revealed that Carl Simmons had been involved in illegal activities behind the scenes, loan sharking, and possible ties to organized crime. It painted a picture of a man desperate and dangerous. But the most disturbing detail came from a search of the storm drain's vicinity. Hidden beneath layers of sediment, officers found personal items belonging to the Parkers: a child's jacket, a single shoe, and a fragment of Susan Parker's necklace. The grim implication was clear: the family's disappearance was no accident. Somehow the oven and these items were all connected, hidden underground like a time capsule of tragedy. Detective Miller pieced together a horrifying theory. On the night the Parkers vanished, something had gone terribly wrong during that pizza delivery. Perhaps the delivery driver had been involved in a criminal plot, and the family had been silenced to cover it up. But why hide a pizza oven in a storm drain? What secrets did it hold beyond the physical evidence? A breakthrough came when tech experts managed to extract audio fragments from the melted phone's voicemail. Among distorted voices, a faint but unmistakable call for help echoed through the static. It was Susan Parker. The desperate message was brief, garbled, but chilling, proof the family had been trapped, frightened, and fighting for their lives in those final moments. The town was stunned. The cold case was no longer a mystery of vanishing, but of a violent, hidden crime buried beneath the streets. Now the search was on to find out who was behind it all, and if justice for the Parkers could finally be served after 33 long years. With the chilling voicemail from Susan Parker playing in the background, the investigation turned into a race against time. Authorities reopened every angle, revisited every lead, and questioned everyone connected to Carl Simmons and Tony's Pizzeria. Detective Miller, fueled by decades of unanswered questions and the haunting cries for help, pushed for the case to be solved once and for all. As evidence mounted, a clearer picture emerged. Carl Simmons had been more deeply involved with dangerous figures than anyone had imagined. The fire at Tony's wasn't just a desperate act of arson, it was a cover-up. Documents seized during a raid on a local crime syndicate revealed that the pizzeria had been a front for illegal gambling, money laundering, and worse. The Parkers, it seemed, had accidentally discovered this hidden world on their last pizza night. The delivery driver had been ordered to silence them, an order he reluctantly obeyed, torched the pizzeria to erase the trail, and hid the pizza oven in the storm drain to bury the evidence. But what happened to the family themselves? Further excavation in the storm drains uncovered a small chamber, sealed and forgotten, where forensic teams found traces of human remains. DNA testing confirmed the worst. They belonged to the Parker family. The town mourned the tragic end to a family once full of life and tradition. Yet there was relief that the truth was finally out. Carl Simmons was convicted not only of arson, but of conspiracy and murder. His sentence was harsh but just, a long overdue reckoning for a crime that had haunted Millbrook for over 3 decades. As the community gathered for a memorial, Detective Miller reflected on the painful journey. The mystery had been buried for years, but perseverance, new technology, and a relentless search for truth had finally brought justice. The story of the Parkers became a somber reminder that even the quietest nights, like a simple pizza delivery, can hide the darkest secrets. And though the family was lost, their legacy endured, a warning against silence, a testament to the power of uncovering truth, no matter how deep it's buried.